You know that couple, the one everyone had an opinion about. Maybe they got married too young. Maybe they came from different families, different backgrounds. Maybe one side of the family never approved. Maybe someone said, "It won't last. You're making a mistake. Give it a few years." And somehow, 40 years later, they're still sitting at the same dinner table, still finishing each other's sentences, still there. And maybe that's your story too. Maybe people doubted your marriage. Maybe some quietly hoped it would fail. Maybe a few even tried to help it fail. Which raises a question. What do people who stay married, even when others want them to fail, understand that everybody else misses? Outside interference rarely looks the way people imagine. Most of the time, it's quieter than that. It's the mother-in-law who never fully accepted you, who smiled to your face and said things behind your back that your spouse had to hear about later, who made every family dinner feel like a test you were failing. It's the family member who called regularly with small reasons to question things, who never said, "Leave" directly, but somehow, every single conversation moved in that direction, who dressed interference as concern and made themselves sound like the only one willing to say what everyone else was thinking. It's the friend who took sides after a difficult period, who told your spouse they deserved better, who made leaving feel not just acceptable, but almost expected. And sometimes it's all of it at once, coming from multiple directions, for years, from people who genuinely believed they were helping, which is exactly what makes it so hard to defend against, because you can't tell someone their concern isn't welcome without sounding like you have something to hide. The strange thing about marriage is that everyone becomes an expert the moment you get married. People tell you what you should tolerate, what you shouldn't, who is right, who is wrong, who should apologize, who should leave. But there's a problem with all of it. Nobody outside your marriage sees the entire picture. They see one argument. You live the whole story. They see one difficult year. You remember 30 years of everything that came before it. They see one mistake. You remember 1,000 ordinary days when that person quietly showed up for you. No one standing outside a marriage can fully see what exists inside it, which means no one standing outside was ever actually qualified to decide whether it should end. Think about the marriages that lasted 50 years. Do you think they never had hard times? Never had seasons where things felt broken? Every long marriage has chapters nobody else knows about. The year there wasn't enough money, the year illness entered the house, the year grief changed everything, the year they barely talked, the year they weren't sure how to fix what had broken. Every marriage that lasts a lifetime has at least one chapter that looked impossible while it was happening. The difference is that some people walked away during that chapter, and some people stayed, not because staying was easy, because they believed there was something on the other side of the hard season worth staying for. And that's when the outside voices usually get loudest. You deserve better. Why are you still together? Just leave. Those words sound simple when someone else says them, because they don't have to live with the consequences. You do. They don't have to lose the person who knows every version of you. You do. Starting over sounds easier when it isn't your life being taken apart. But something happens when a couple goes through hardship together that people on the outside almost never see. You become a team, not just a husband and wife, not just two people living in the same house. A team that survived things. A team that knows exactly what the other person looks like on their worst day and stayed anyway. A team that learned how to keep moving, even when life became genuinely difficult. John Gottman, a researcher who spent decades studying what makes marriages last, found that couples who build a deep friendship at the center of their relationship develop a loyalty that outside pressure consistently fails to break. Not because they ignore the people around them, but because they built something inside the marriage that the world outside cannot reach. The couples who survived weren't the ones with the easiest circumstances. They were the ones who kept choosing each other when everything around them was suggesting they shouldn't. And here's what that pressure actually did, whether anyone intended it or not. It didn't just test the marriage, It revealed it. Every difficult family gathering you got through together. Every person who tried to get between you and failed. Every year you were still together after someone predicted you wouldn't be. All of it was showing you something about what you were actually made of. Because pressure doesn't create weakness in a relationship. It finds whatever weakness is already there. Researchers who studied couples who survived serious outside interference found something worth knowing. Those couples reported stronger trust and deeper commitment than couples whose marriages were never seriously tested. Not because difficulty is good, because surviving it together proves something that easy years never can. The marriages that were never challenged never got to find out what they were made of. Yours did. Think about what a 50-year marriage actually contains. Inside jokes nobody else understands. A glance across the room that says everything without a word. A person who remembers who you were at 25, at 40, at 60. Stories you've told 100 times that still make you both laugh the same way. An entire private world that belongs only to the two of you. Nobody else on earth lived your life with you in exactly the same way. You built something together that can never be duplicated. And the people who tried to pull it apart never understood the value of what they were trying to destroy, because they didn't build it. You did. Sometimes people call couples like you stubborn, and maybe there's some truth in that. You probably stayed during years others would have walked away from. You probably forgave things that required real effort. You probably had moments when staying felt harder than leaving. But loyalty often looks like stubbornness to people who have never had to practice it. Commitment looks strange in a world that is increasingly comfortable with leaving, because staying requires something difficult, the ability to see a person's worst moments and still remember their best ones, the ability to believe that one hard season isn't the entire story. That isn't weakness. That's the only kind of strength that gets built through years, not given at the start. So what do people who stayed married, even when others wanted them to fail, actually understand? They understand something that time eventually teaches everyone willing to stay long enough to learn it. A lasting marriage isn't built because nobody tried to pull it apart. It's built because two people kept choosing each other anyway. The people who doubted your marriage saw the problems. You saw the person. The people who expected you to fail were watching the storm. You were building the shelter, and now, decades later, the very marriage people thought wouldn't survive has become the safest place you've ever known. The person everyone questioned became the person who knows you best. The marriage everyone doubted became the place where your entire life happened. They didn't break it. They revealed it. They showed you what it was made of. And what it was made of turned out to be stronger than anyone expected, including maybe even you. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Did someone try to interfere with your marriage? In-laws, family, friends, circumstances that felt impossible? And how did you get through it? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one.